All right, we will call to order the March 27, 2025 meeting of the Sacramento Metropolitan Air Quality Management District. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Director Aquino?
Here.
Director Desmond?
Here.
Director Dickinson? Director Guerra? Director Hume? Director Kennedy?
Here.
Director Maple?
Here.
Director Middleton?
Here.
Director Pran?
Here.
Director Robles? Director Rodriguez?
Here.
Director Sander? Director Cerna?
Here.
Director Vang? We have quorum.
All right, if you'd all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, if you'd please read the board clerk announcements.
Members of the public are encouraged to observe the meeting in real time at metro14live.saccounty.gov. Participate in person via Zoom video or teleconference line and by submitting written comments to boardclerk@airquality.org. Comments will be delivered to the Board of Directors. Public comments regarding matters under the jurisdiction of the Board of Directors will be acknowledged by the chairperson, distributed to the Board of Directors, and included in the record. This meeting of the Sacramento Metropolitan Air Quality Management District is live and recorded with closed captioning. It is cablecast on Metro Cable Channel 14, the Local Government Affairs Channel on Comcast, and DirecTV U-verse cable systems. Today's meeting replays on Sunday, March 30th, 2025 at 11:30 a.m. on Metro Cable Channel 14.
Very good, thank you. That takes us to our consent calendar. Any questions from my colleagues? And I don't see any member of the public here, so I don't think we have any requests to speak. So we'll entertain a motion to adopt the consent calendar.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay. Next item is our discussion calendar.
The next item is the discussion calendar, and the first item is the board member administrative updates, and I have Megan Shepard in chambers to give a presentation.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and Directors. Megan Shepard, Director of Administrative Services. I'm going to be giving a presentation on some board member administrative updates. Sorry, waiting for the PowerPoint to come up. The first topic on, you can skip right on to the next slide, Andrew, once it comes out. But we're going to be talking about modernizing board compensation legislation. Why is that important and why now? We haven't changed the board compensation in many, many years. It's been sitting at $100 per meeting, per day, for many years, with a cap of $12,000 per year. And with this legislation, AB 2522, it increased it, it doubled that to $200 and to $24,000 per year. Things like everything else we're seeing in this world, things have become more difficult. The workload, the governance, this is fairly compensating for that increased difficulty and that workload. Inflation, everything is costing more money for you as well. And that retention and recruitment. We need to keep the best board members on our dais, and we appreciate the hard work that goes into governing the Air District. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned, the key changes really are the importance of increasing that per diem rate from that 100 to 200 and the monthly cap to 1,000 to 2,000. But it also allows for future adjustments, which can be brought forth with COLAs or future per diem increases, and they just need to be brought forth at open meetings. This increase for this next year, which began in 2025, January 2025, has been included in our projections through the end of this fiscal year and included in our fiscal year 25-26 budget. This will ensure fair compensation for all and recognizes the growing responsibility. All right, next slide, please. And this is a little outside of our board here, but really important. It does reflect Director Guerra. He serves on the CARB board, and this we do have members that can serve on that board. Air districts are able to represent on that board, but they were not getting paid at the same rate as the other members. They were getting paid a per diem. So with this legislation, the board members, the air district board members, will now be getting paid the salary that the CAR board members are also getting paid. So fair compensation, which will really encourage collaboration and fairness amongst the local and state level members. And that will have no impact on our budget. It'll be all at the state budget level. All right, next slide, please, Andrew. Perfect. On to the next topic of teleconferencing for board and special committee meetings. There are two separate legislations on this as well, yet they go hand in hand. This is effective this year, 2025. The purpose of this was to update the Brown Act. As you know, Brown Act calls for us to be in chambers to post if we are our location. So if you are teleconferencing, post your location. As you'll see today, Director Guerra's location was to be posted. I'm using him as an example here, but was posted in our agenda before it was posted to the public. And that'll continue with AB 2302. But this just sets clear provisions with the amount of times our board meets that we will have we're allowed to have two teleconferencing meetings for each of you as long as we have a quorum in chambers in the region. So that will limit that teleconferencing to just the two. And it would provide the consistency for remote participation amongst everyone and allow for flexibility. All right, next slide, please. Now, 2449, this one has been in effect since 2003. And while the 2302 will still ask for you to disclose your location and post that and have it be a allow public access. 2449 does not require public access and does not require you to post your location. With just cause and emergency circumstances, you do not need to disclose that. It does need approval via this board, so you'll submit your reason. It does not have to be specific. There is privacy, and that is the reason for this. Being ill, sick children, having to care for a family member, or an emergency, unforeseen circumstances. The just cause, as I said, go hand in hand with the prior slide where you do need to limit. So if you're going to be, at your home base location, chair, I know in the past you have stayed in Folsom, and that would count. But if you, for some reason, had to care for a family member, you could stay, and you don't have to post your location. You just have to let the board know, I'm caring for a family member, and I'm not going to post my location. And that will be approved. So it gives you all a bit more flexibility and allowing you to serve the board and the air district and meet your own needs as well. So giving you that flexibility and having that hybrid ability. Emergency circumstances, again, should be limited, as we don't see emergencies with the true definition of the emergency, which is still hard to define, but it shouldn't be used often. And I can provide more information on this if you have any questions. But next slide, please, Andrew. And on a happy note, we have had our district board orientation meetings. Chair Aquino, our clerk of the board, Selena Martinez, Alberto, Dr. Ayala, and myself have been to see a couple of our directors, Director Rodriguez and Director Dickinson, and we are scheduling more meetings. We have our next one on April 8th, so we're very excited. And if you are interested in having us come out and share some information about the district, please let our clerk know, and we'll be happy to come to you and share some information. So it's good background on the district. And that, next slide, please. All right, thank you. Do you have any questions?
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. If, for example, I still wanted to Zoom in from Folsom City Hall, that requires advance notice. It would be published on the agenda just like it always was. But if I had a special circumstance where I was ill or I needed to care for a sick child or something like that, that can be done on an emergency basis, basically. Wouldn't require notification, wouldn't require me posting my specific location.
Correct. It can be that would be classified as just cause, but the rest of that is correct, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? I don't have any requests here. Okay. Well, this is a receive and file, so I guess we can go to the next item, please.
Thank you.
Chair Aquino, I have my hand raised.
Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry there. Dr. Ayala.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to make clear for the board that the legislation that you just heard about was actually supported and driven by other entities. For example, South Coast Air Quality Management District, our friends were the ones behind some of the efforts to balance the per diem. So we're just sharing with you that these new mandates are going to affect all of you in a positive way. But again, we're just part of the collection of agencies that have supported some of the adjustments to the compensation. So I just want to make sure that you understand that we're not necessarily sponsoring or behind any specific piece of legislation about this.
Okay, thank you. Next item, please.
The next item on the agenda is the board update on new federal air quality priorities. And I have Alex Ponikvar in chambers to give a presentation.
Good morning.
Your mic's not on. Oh,
It says it's on.
are we good?
Yes.
Okay. So good morning, members of the board. My name is Alex Ponikvar, and I'm a new planner with the Sac Metro Air District. I look forward to this opportunity to share information with the board. As I'm sure you've heard, there's been a lot of news about changes to EPA policy at the federal level. Today, I'll discuss some of the impacts on the Sacramento region of some of these recent EPA actions, as well as a CARB decision related to 2 requests under the Clean Air Act that were pending an EPA decision. Next slide, please. So, as you may know, As you may know, the federal EPA sets health standards for different air pollutants based on levels that will protect public health, especially for vulnerable groups like children, the elderly, and people with respiratory problems. State and local air regulators create state implementation plans, or SIPs, that demonstrate how each area that isn't meeting these standards will progress toward meeting the standard. Local districts, the state, and EPA all work together to implement control programs and enforce emission reduction measures at sources in the district. In this graphic, you can see the Sacramento region has made great improvements in our ozone concentrations. The blue line shows the progress we've already made, and the green line shows the path the region has been on to continue improving air quality. Next slide, please. EPA recently announced a reevaluation of several past federal actions and decisions. These include changes to the health-based air quality standards like the PM 2.5 standard and other air quality regulations, among other environmental actions. While the exact impact of these reconsiderations is unknown while EPA is in the early stages of the review and we wait to learn more, there's a potential for changes to projected emission levels or a need to revise air quality plans. However, California has many independent programs and regulations to control air quality, so the impact on the Sacramento region may be less than in other states. As the issues develop, there are more questions than answers for now, but the district will continue to work with our state and federal partners to get a clearer picture. Next slide, please. Shifting to the issue of vehicle standards, I'll give a little background on the California waiver program. So as with many areas of California, vehicle emissions are the largest sector of emissions in the Sacramento region. Only EPA has authority to set and enforce vehicle standards and requirements. However, California can set more stringent requirements with EPA approval through a waiver process. CARB submitted 2 waiver requests to EPA for the Clean Fleets Rule and the locomotive regulation. However, CARB withdrew those requests in January of this year. This withdrawal will result in different emission reduction outcomes. Next slide, please. At this point, we know there are a lot of questions about these changes. Will there be an increase in emissions? Will future emissions be higher than anticipated? Will there be changes to the health-based standards themselves? This graph shows represents a range of potential outcomes that could result from these changes. The blue bars show our current emissions and the projected future levels, while the orange and purple show the range of possible future outcomes. The district will continue to discuss with state and local partners, as well as EPA, to understand the impact of these actions and evaluate different options to continue our air quality improvements. Next slide, please. To conclude, the district wanted to provide this update to ensure that you all are aware of these recent actions and decisions. While there's limited information for now on these issues and many remaining questions, what is clear now is that the impact on the Sacramento region will be real and consequential. We'll continue to provide further updates as answers to these questions become more clear and the situation becomes more clear. So thank you for your time and the opportunity to share this information today. I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Alex. Any questions for Alex? Yeah. Yes, Director Hume.
Thank you. A quick question. On the one slide there where it showed the blue and then the orange and the purple, there it is. Health standard with a question mark. Is the question mark because the level of the health standard may change, or the what qualifies as the health standard, or what they use to quantify, rather, will change? Or
Yeah, thank you for the question. So right now there's been no actual decision on changing the health standard, but we wanted to represent that this is one of the issues that EPA has signaled that they're open to reconsidering, and that we may anticipate changes in the future. But we don't know the details of what that might look like yet.
Great. And then currently, the health standard is based off of parts per million, emission standards. What is the baseline that we would be operating from?
Sure. So it depends on the pollutant, but the most important being ozone. Yes, that's measured in parts per million of concentrations of ozone. So that's what was represented on the initial slide with the downward trend line.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Director Dickinson.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I am interested in the extent to which, and this is referring to your slide about the withdrawal of California waivers, the extent to which, notwithstanding whatever EPA may do, we can still set and enforce health standards in California under the California Clean Air Act.
Yes, thank you for the question. So the vehicle standards is one of those areas where state authority is preempted under the Clean Air Act. EPA has generally granted waivers for these vehicle programs, but CARB chose to withdraw those 2 specific programs, among others, earlier this year. So until that issue is revisited and hopefully granted those vehicle waivers in the future, those specific standards cannot be enforced.
No, I understand that with respect to the vehicle waivers, but the California Clean Air Act covers the entirety of the spectrum with respect to regulation of emissions and setting standards. And so is there an assessment that you're aware of that's been made of the extent to which there is risk that in some way or manner the California Clean Air Act could be limited or preempted by by the Federal Clean Air Act? Is that something that's actively being discussed at the state level in particular?
So I'm not personally aware of an assessment on that, but I'll maybe defer to Dr. Ayala on that to see if he has more information on that issue.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you, Director Dickinson. We haven't had the chance, and when I say we, the collective we, over the last few years, to test the theory that you are proposing, and that is, you are absolutely correct. Just the same way that we have national ambient air quality standards, California has adopted ambient air quality standards that traditionally mimic what the national standards have been. We haven't been in the situation we are today, which is what you're referring to, and that is, could California proceed on its own, setting its ambient air quality standards, and then dictate what regulations and rules need to be adopted to get the reductions to meet the standards? That's something, again, that we haven't seen, and I suspect it will be one of the tests that we will hear about. Now, to your question, we haven't heard anything about that. At this point in time, as Alex mentioned, the only action we have seen is the state has pulled back on some of the rules, and EPA has announced their intent to revisit a number of the rules that had already been in place. So, and while I have the mic, I'll report that we are pleased that the new leadership at EPA has already reached out to us and many other air quality agencies, and we're already on the calendar to begin the discussions and direct conversation with the new leadership that was just recently confirmed at EPA. So in the future, as more information emerges, we'll bring it back to you. But at this point, as Alex said, we just want to make you aware that this is happening, and we don't have a lot of answers just yet.
Okay, Vice Chair Maple.
Thank you, Chair. And I really appreciate the presentation. I know there's still a lot unknown. I'm sure we'll find out more as time goes on. But, I'm a member of several regional boards that are having similar conversations with the federal government about, what's next, how are things going to change. And so my request would be, sounds like Dr. Ayala already said this, that we're kept abreast. So if there are changes that are being discussed, that they're brought forth to this body so that we can discuss them and be made aware, and just really appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Definitely the intent.
Thank you, Alex. All right, next item, please.
Madam Chair, Director Guerra has his hand up.
Oh, I can't see him on this screen here.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. No worries, Madam Chair. I'm on the big screen over there. One, I think Dr. Ayala responded with most of the issues. One thing that I wanted to highlight is that even though the ACF, the Advanced Clean Fleets waiver was pulled, that only affects the private industry. Still all municipalities under the ACF would still be affected. And then in combination with the Clean Truck Partnership, which is the settlement agreement between the state and the manufacturers to continue to produce, that is still in place. And just most recently at the Bioenergy Association, we heard directly from some manufacturers like Cummins Motors that produce heavy-duty vehicles that they do not intend to change course in their manufacturing of zero-emission heavy-duty vehicles. That doesn't mean that there isn't concerns and questions about the change in demand, because obviously losing the private market is the mandate on the private market is a big issue, but there is still movement forward, and the direction, one, because what has been proposed, or at least what's been discussed, doesn't change our air attainment targets. The targets are still there, and we're still moving towards those targets. Now, whether they get more stringent, I think we'll know, but we still have our current targets, and that means that we still have work to do.
Thank you. Okay, next item, please.
The next item is the Air Pollution Control Officer's Report, and I have Alberto Ayala on the line to give a presentation.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. I'm bringing you a number of information items. Some of them left over from the last board meeting. You may recall we postponed, given timing, the APCO report. So there's a few things that we need to make you aware of, and we'll get right into it. Next slide, please, Andrew. So the first one is SB 88. We've talked to you about this piece of legislation that we are co-sponsoring with our friends at the Placer County Air Pollution Control District. This is moving pretty fast, pretty quickly through the process. So we want to make you aware of what we are attempting to do here, and we very much appreciate the support of the Bioenergy Association of California. They have been fantastic, sort of leading the charge, pulling all this together. What we are attempting to do here is promote the utilization of existing biomass resources. From our perspective, we're particularly interested in agricultural biomass utilization because obviously we're a strong agricultural region, and the current way to manage that biomass is essentially to manage open pile burning. We're very proud of the program that we have to manage the burning and the smoke impacts from that. But here we see an opportunity to go beyond and do much better than having to burn the biomass. We can actually utilize the biomass as a new resource and create low carbon fuels, including hydrogen. And Senator Caballero has authored the legislation, and she's been a great supporter. And this is moving, and we're asking basically the state to develop a quantification method in terms of putting a value on the benefit of avoiding the emissions that would otherwise come if we continue the current practice. And the last thing I'll say here is, so the legislation is moving through the process. It moved through the Senate, is moving now to the Assembly. And I just want to acknowledge Director Guerra, who's taken a particular interest in this. You may recall he is the Air District representative on the Basin-wide Air Pollution Control Council, this collection of 9 air districts representing 11 counties in Northern California. The BCC has also taken interest in this topic. Next week, we're going to have Legislative Day. So we have a number of BCC members, including Director Guerra. We're going to be meeting with a number of legislators, again, to continue to push this idea that the time is right and the interest is there. The climate bond has some money for this. We're asking for more funding from the state, but we think the time is right to think bigger and better in terms of how do we deal with this biomass that is out there. It also benefits forest biomass, so this can be a tool for wildfire management. Again, this is moving, and we are one of the co-sponsors, so we wanted to make you aware of that. Next slide, please, Andrew. The next are easier topics. I just want to make you aware as well that obviously some of you are going to be coming to Cap to Cap. And the Air District and myself in particular, we have a leadership role in the air quality team, and we have identified 3 topics that we're going to carry this year. And you can see the topics here directly from the issue papers. We're asking for funding incentives for businesses to help with compliance with some of the standards. We're asking for not losing some of the federal funding that we get as an agency for air quality monitoring. And we're also obviously supporting the fact that we want to make sure that the agencies, and in particular EPA, has the right staffing level so they can not only assist us, but assist businesses and communities. We are in the leadership role for Cap to Cap for the air quality team, along with our friends from SMUD. and Valley Vision. And SMUD is carrying an issue paper related to battery storage and framing it as energy independence. We have all this renewable energy, and in many cases is excess renewable energy that we have to essentially throw away. We want federal support to continue to develop the energy storage capabilities that SMUD has been leading, and they want to carry that on. And the third one is what I just talked about. We're also going to carry a message to our federal agencies that utilization of biomass has great potential, again, for energy diversification, and in particular for us, hydrogen. Next slide, Andrew. As you know, we are on the board of the California Air Pollution Control Officers Association. CAPCOA is a great advocate for some of our most important interests, and very much 9 out of 10 times we're going to align with CAPCOA priorities. And the association representing all of us air districts in California has submitted a budget request to the administration. And these are the 3 areas that we collectively have identified as priority. The first one is AB 617. You have heard about us talk about the Community Air Protection Program. We're asking for both money for projects, as we call incentives. So these are subsidies that we can provide to businesses, to community members, so that they can implement cleaner projects. And then the other thing we're asking for is what we call implementation, meaning we have a number of expectations as an air agency, just like every other air district. And we need the funding for those to fulfill those expectations. The second program, speaking of agriculture, is the acronym is Farmer. You can see here what that means. And this is, again, basically funding that will help us identify what are the alternatives to agricultural burning. Some of you may be aware that in the San Joaquin Valley, there's already a ban. So in the valley, farmers can no longer burn the ag residue. And the reality is there hasn't been many good alternatives. I mean, there's some alternatives, but they're very costly and they are difficult to scale. So there again comes in our idea with the biomass utilization bill. The last one is for wood smoke reduction program, replacing wood stoves. And the last thing is Clean Cars for All. That is very much an ongoing conversation. Clean Cars for All is a program that we and 4 other air districts, the large air districts, have been implemented for years. And right now we are seeing a shift of the state develop its own Clean Cars for All program that they want to implement statewide. And we're asking to make sure that it's in a coordinated fashion, and that we air districts that have been doing this for a long time and have many success stories continue to get the funding. Right now, we're set to run out of money if no changes are made. The Bay Area Air Quality Management District and the San Joaquin have already run out of money. We probably have less than a year to go through our program. And as of right now, we are very much advocating. And in fact, today, there's going to be a coalition of stakeholders attending the ARB board meeting to basically deliver this message. Next slide. We wanted to give you an update on, again, some of the federal changes that you have been reading in the news, just like us. In the previous informational item, you heard from our staff tell you specifically about some of the rules and regulations that EPA is reconsidering. You have also heard about the federal funding and the potential for cuts or freezes. So we wanted to give you an idea of what that means for us. The Air District runs about 6 or 7 different programs that are funded federally. And what that means is the funding we get from the federal government accounts for about 15% to 20% of our total operating budget. And you may recall, and some of you are going to see this in the next hour, our operating budget is on the order of $25 million a year. So you can see the scale of the impact if federal funding is indeed frozen or just straight out cut. Again, we don't know how EPA is gonna approach some of these funds. Right now, they're still live, and we're able to charge against those federal funds. But I wanted you to be aware because again, it's 15 to 20%. You know, is not going to break us, but it's definitely going to impact. And the fear is that without federal funding, we're just going to have to see some of the activities. Again, air quality monitoring. You know that we have a network of regulatory air monitoring stations. Those are mandated by the Clean Air Act, and the Clean Air Act says that the federal government needs to provide funding for agencies to run those stations. If the funding goes away, we're going to be in a real bind to figure out, you know, how do we continue to operate a network that is supposed to continue to be running. So again, a lot more questions at this point than answers. I do wanted you to be aware that federal funding and some of the issues you're reading in the news media, it is going to impact the air district directly. Next slide. And the last thing I want to share with you, just as an FYI, is, you know, thankfully, remote teleworking continues to be an option. The reason I'm not in chambers with you is I'm coming to you from Cartagena, Colombia. I was invited by the World Health Organization to come and join their global conference on air pollution and health. And again, I just wanted to make you aware of that. And obviously, this is not only a privilege and an honor personally, but I mean, the fact that our agency is here. There's about, I heard 800 participants representing 60 countries in Colombia meeting under the UN charter. So again, just wanted to let you know. This is my APCO report. I'd be happy to take any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ayala. Director Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. Dr. Ayala, the threat to the air quality, I mean, the air monitors, does that include areas within AB 617 boundaries? Are those somewhat safer because they're different, or are they just as vulnerable?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Director Kennedy. So it does not include the AB 617 South Sacramento community, because you may recall, what we have deployed in that community, as well as many other areas around Sacramento, are these portable sensors. Right. What we are talking about is a dozen or so of these more elaborate fixed ambient air quality monitoring stations, like you see them around. Chair Aquino has one in her backyard in Folsom. So those are the stations that are at risk if we don't continue to see the federal funding. But all the other sensors that have been deployed, essentially with other programs, will continue to run.
Okay, thank you. And does every board member get their own air quality?
Yeah, it's not literally in my backyard. But.
You know, that's a really good question. I think we do need to give you guys all, but then you have to commit to actually setting it up, running it, and sharing the data.
City Hall, behind City Hall, yeah. Okay, Vice Chair Maple.
Thank you, Chair. Just quickly, I wanted to congratulate you, Dr. Ayala. It's a really incredible honor for you to be there. And is there anyone else from California, any of the other air districts being represented?
That I am aware, no. It's incredible. I've seen a couple of attendees, but they're mostly academics from UC Berkeley and a couple others. There is some attendance from the U.S., but again, the U.S. EPA was supposed to attend and they pulled out, and I haven't seen any others. So yeah, it's pretty remarkable that we're having this conversation and there's such scarcity of U.S. representation. So yeah, I'm like I said, I'm very pleased to be here representing and bringing back some of those experiences here.
Yeah, well, thank you for representing the United States of America abroad. We really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much. That takes us to board ideas, comments, and AB 1234 reports. Anybody have anything? I will say that I normally do try to zoom in from the city of Folsom to, one fewer car on the road, but today I rode light rail in with Supervisor Rodriguez, and it was clean and convenient, and we had a good time. So I have no request to speak, so it's 9:41, and we will adjourn. Thank you, everyone.
Good job.